And welcome back. I am with Front Range Christian School. We have the president, David Cooper, and we have John DeYoung in studio. Welcome, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
It's great to have you in studio. We've been talking for quite some time, John, about your connection with the school and what you're doing there. So let's, our listeners are familiar with you. You have your hands on a lot of pots.
Yeah.
What's up right now with what you're doing?
So what I'm doing with David Cooper, head of school, Front Range Christian School, is we're working together. I'm working with them to help their branding, marketing, and messaging and getting out there a little bit more into the community.
And you're great at that.
Thank you. Telling stories of what's going on at Front Range.
Right.
And I just love what Cooper has for the school, what his vision and mission is for the children, for the families, and for the community. And when you look at all of that, I spent time before coming into the partnership to interview a lot of people, students, family members, faculty. And what I saw was continuity in their message, continuity in impact, continuity in their stories of what Front Range is all about. So, you can't say no to that when you have something like that that's so good and everyone sort of agrees on that.
Right.
That's really, really neat. And so Cooper's done a really good job there.
Yeah. Well, I enjoyed meeting you, David, just with your heart. We had kind of like a mini interview, if you will. We didn't plan on it.
That's true.
But, I'm not a teacher, but I have a passion for education. I went to CU Boulder, loved my public school journey, if you will, but I have a concern right now with the way education's going in the United States. And I know a lot of parents do, and they want their kids to be educated. And not only that, but to have their worldview as well. So let's speak on that real quick before we get in our topic about worldview.
Oh my gosh. Okay. How long do we have?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's my whole world. I started in public schools and 16 years. And back then, the world was a little bit different. And I don't think that there's ever been any education that's been neutral. That just doesn't exist. But at least it wasn't so agenda driven as it is today.
Right.
And I think that is the significant difference. We are teaching from a Christian worldview. That idea of how do we teach kids not just what to think, but how to think.
Exactly.
And how to process what's coming at them in the world through that lens of biblical truth. Mm-hmm. And in the public schools, you've got a Christian worldview that doesn't hold to a truth.
Right.
And when you rob education of the virtue of truth, it now becomes something that's tetherless.
Right.
And it starts to lose its meaning. And so instead what we put in are a lot of flaccid philosophies. And all you can lean on then, if there is no truth, is acceptance of everything.
Right.
And so you get kids that their worldview is not one of a Christian worldview, but one that is rooted in worldly thinking.
Right, and I call that secular humanism. That's kind of the term I use for that. Is they're just taught that, and they don't think of it as a religion, but it really is.
Oh, it is. It's secular humanism is exactly what it is, where man is put at the apex and not God.
Right,
and it's rooted in a faulty understanding of the nature of man, right? We know man is fallen and sinful. Right. And yet secular humanism sees man as the apex, and that we have goodness in us naturally and we can create this perfect society. Yeah. And when that's your driver, then man becomes a thing that's exalted, and your own pleasure desires are the things that you pursue. Right. And we know it's broken.
Right. Yeah, and that's interesting because I have a theory here. When you take God out of education, naturally the society is going to get stupider. Can I even use that word? It's kind of irony, too, that you use that word. But I think that I wonder if we did going back into when that happened up until now and how the test scores have diminished and so forth, if that has a running underlying foundation of also taking God out of the school system. And we're talking about Christian scholars in this that's your goal is to make Christian scholars, people who are highly educated. They go out into society, they have a Christian worldview, but they're also going to make an impact, a positive impact in our society. This is your goal as you train up these kids.
Without a doubt. And what we're focusing on the virtues of a Christian scholar. And people that are familiar with classical education, although we're not a classical school, they'll be used to that type of verbiage, virtues. Well, virtues are those ideals. And again, if you have a society that doesn't believe in a singular truth, well, then virtues become something that aren't as valued as they once were.
That was never mentioned in my public school upbringing, the term virtue.
No.
Like, I don't think we ever used it. So, okay, this is great.
Yeah, it's very utilitarian.
Yeah.
Right? It is about what is good for you, but more importantly, what is good for society, right? We're about creating individuals that can serve the society because, frankly, that progressive agenda is saying that you're not responsible for your kids. We are.
Right.
And so the focus on education becomes something very, very different.
Right.
So for us, we want to create Christian scholars that possess virtues like faith and balance and love and firmness and beyond, and have the ability to engage with society in a way that's meaningful and in a dialogue that's respectful but firm. They can hold on to their beliefs while pursuing the truth without compromising.
Right. Wonderful. Love that. So as you're kind of countercultural within your school, you got to really fight. Perhaps I would think that, someone coming from another school into your school and the transition of that student, how does that look?
Yeah, well, it is hard, I think, for some of them. But a lot of the families are coming to us because they are finally realizing, wait a second, there is an agenda that's going on, and they're being taught things that we can't undo around our kitchen table anymore.
Right.
And so I think there is a little bit of perhaps a shock when it comes to, oh my goodness, this is what it looks like to be taught the truth. I've always said I think Christian education is superior just because we get to teach the entire truth. Right. My school, we teach evolution, right? Not because we're ardent supporters of evolution, but because a educated mind needs to understand that theory, that it's so important within our scientific community. But we don't teach as if it's dogmatic truth. Right. And I think that's a shock to some of the kids coming in going, you know what, we're not going to engage in this debate because I want to prove you wrong. What we want to do is gather around the table and let's dialogue so that all of us are pursuing a better understanding of the truth. And when you engage in that manner, it changes the conversation.
And we can have full confidence as Christians that that perspective and our perspective on the Bible, we know that's truth. We know that if we allow for an environment of truth within education, eventually we're going to get to the end of the Bible's correct. We know that. In science, of course, especially evolution, for example, it's going to disagree, but we know in the end, if we had all the facts and stuff, or we just had the right thinking and education around it, it will agree with the Bible. There's some dogmatic things within Christianity, perhaps, like some things like when they have dating and all that kind of stuff that need to catch up to the Bible, perhaps, But one thing I want to say, too, is when I was in college, I took evolutionary courses and I was doing great. And one professor called on me to answer a lot of questions. Well, halfway in between my the class, if you will, I went into his office, I think we were talking about paper or something, and said that I was a Christian and I'm actually a creationist view. I mean, he wants to fall off his chair, like, what? But I think it's very important as Christians that we do understand the other side so we can have an intelligent conversation and then be able to bring in the work environment, if you're a scientist or whatnot, opening the door up to truth within that subject and letting God and His Word speak too. We're just going to have, we'll be able to invent and scientifically, if we allow God in the equation, even more amazing things as we acknowledge Him. But we got to have the understanding of the culture for sure, and have it, because if we don't, then we don't have any conversation. And that's what the problem is right now. It's no conversation.
That's correct. We've lost our place at the table of the dialogue of the day. Right. And if we want to get into that discourse, we need to earn the right to sit there.
Exactly.
And so we need to be scholars, and we need to be respected for our knowledge and our eloquence and our ability to communicate well. And that means we've got to be learned in those areas that we even disagree with.
Exactly.
Right. And not just shunning it and shouting it down. The days of shouting at the wind have to be over.
Exactly.
We need to be able to engage in the dialogue of the day in a meaningful way. And we do that by being great scholars. That's where it begins.
Yeah, I love that. And we gain respect. You know, in my little example, if I would have gotten a D in the course versus an A in the course and really tried to understand, well, maybe with the A, hopefully, an open door for someone to ask me, the professor in this case, hey, well, tell me about your faith, you know. I don't understand why you can understand what I'm saying, but yet disagree, you know, but, you know, so it's just a better opportunity for the kids to go out there into their professional fields and just be respected and be able to have an opinion that their colleagues will respect and perhaps even embrace as their own.
Yeah, amen to that.
Yeah. What's right now with the Christian scholars topic right now? What are some of the key things? We kind of had an umbrella idea of virtue and stuff, but what are some practical things that you guys are doing besides, you know, learning both sides of the spectrum, evolution, creationism? What are some other things that you guys do to create Christian scholars?
Wow. I guess one of the biggest things that we do is one of our primary methods. Well, I shouldn't say primary. One of our most important methods of instruction at the secondary level is academic dialogue. And it's a form of discussion, but it's a little bit different than that. We've developed about 10 rules that we follow. We give our kids pieces of literature or essays, information they have to engage in before class. They read that, they then come to class, and it's a time where it's orchestrated by the teacher but not led by the teacher, where they have to engage in a dialogue around that topic with given prompts and refer back to that text in defending it. So it's not a time to just trade opinion across the table, but to discuss the content of the text, and it trains them then. This is how we engage in dialogue with someone who maybe even we disagree with, but to do it in a way that's respectful, that is meaningful, and it's been powerful for our kids. They go on to college and they make the comment that, man, my classmates don't know how to have a dialogue around a subject. They know how to yell about it. They know how to argue about it.
Exactly.
But that's their goal. Their goal is to prove their point, not to come to a place of greater understanding.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the practical things, obviously, that we do for our kids.
Yeah.
And it's a lot for us as a school. It is creating an environment where our kids feel like they have some ownership of the culture of the place.
Yeah.
They aren't just coming there as a number or a body. That is their school. And so they do have a meaningful voice in a lot of what happens within our hallways and our classrooms. And I think that empowers them when they leave us, that they can be instruments of change.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. I want to go back to high school now and be admitted into school. I'd have a lot of fun. I'm, you know, kind of just thinking about my high school days and college days too. You know, one thing I thought is when I was there is the kids haven't been taught how to have critical thinking skills. That was just something I had to kind of learn on my own, in my own environment, in my family environment, which was great, but not a lot of kids have that opportunity. We're going to continue this discussion in future shows, and we're going to have you back on the show. So thank you so much. And hey, stay tuned. We'll be back.